What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wide Eye Sports Podcast. We got a second episode coming at you this week. There was so much draft information that we just couldn't squeeze it all into one video. We were running real long on the other video, so we decided to make a second one for you. Before we get started, make sure like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff down at the bottom of the video. And after you do that, let's get it started. Let's just jump right in. We each have a biggest winner and a biggest loser from the 2024 NFL Draft. Spoon, you want to go ahead and lead us off here?
Sure. So my biggest winner of the draft is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know that there's quite a few teams that I could have probably went with, but I chose to go with them because I actually really liked their first round pick being Fatanu, not Fashanu.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you just signed Russell Wilson, so giving him some protection up there, and he can play tackle or guard. He's probably going to be playing guard, like you said, but
doesn't matter who protects him, he's still going to suck.
Okay, well, just give him some protection. So one of the things that we've always
put Justin
said,
Fields in the game.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, one of the picks that we thought they were possibly going to take there too was always Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that they were waiting till the second round to take Zach Frazier instead.
Yeah, they nailed that. That was a huge value pick.
I really like that pick. They ended up still getting a great center, which is a position that they needed, and they didn't have to take Jackson Powers Johnson at 20. Instead, they got a great offensive tackle and still waited for it. And then obviously the third round pick being Peyton Wilson, a lot of us had him going in the first round. Most mocks that I've seen had him going early second, maybe a little later in the second. But taking him this late in round 3, I love it. I think he's going to be a huge anchor for that defense. I think he's very athletic. He had an awesome combine. Besides that, maybe taking Roman Wilson at wide receiver. I don't know too much about him. Maybe he can get in there and help out a little bit. But, I mean, he did come from Michigan. So, and he had J.J. McCarthy throwing him the ball. So I guess that's a plus in your book.
Yeah, we'll talk. We're going to talk.
I know, yeah, we're going to talk about that. But
we're going to talk quarterbacks and the top 6 quarterbacks taken in the draft this year. We're going to talk all about them later on in this episode, so don't worry about that.
But he also, I was just bringing him up, Roman Wilson. He did show some speed at the combine as well, running a 4.4 40.
I would like to say that Mike Tomlin has a knack for only drafting really good receivers. So I think Roman Wilson's a certified stud already, but you add on the fact that Mike Tomlin gave him the approval to get drafted by the Steelers. And I mean, just think of all George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. He makes every wide receiver there better when they're there and utilizes them perfectly for their skills.
I'm just
A+.
Yep. If I was a Steelers fan though, which I'm not, I can't stand them either. But I'd be very happy with this draft.
Yeah,
Riley, winner.
Riley, you want to go?
Yeah. Spoon, did you do your biggest loser?
No, I thought we were just going to do winners, and then I'll come back to my loser.
Yeah, we'll circle back around to our biggest loser.
Yep. So my biggest winner was the Philadelphia Eagles. Now,
as it was for most,
they got 2 of the top 5 secondary players in the draft between who was the cornerback they took?
Terrion Arnold and Cooper DeJean.
Quinyon Mitchell.
Or sorry, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper. Terrion Arnold went to the Detroit Lions.
There you go.
And if you watched our last video, a lot of their later round picks they got at great values. It was guys sliding in the draft. I kind of felt like coming into this offseason, the Eagles were kind of teetering on being a playoff team or being out of contention. And I think this draft really bolstered themselves and I think may have put them above the Cowboys.
Ooh.
I know you don't want to hear this.
I don't want to hear that, but I will
listen.
I will admit, in the offseason, I remember preseason, we were making our predictions, and one of the things that I said was that this Eagles defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. I said that I see tons of holes in that secondary, and that's what we saw during the season. And what do? They go out and they draft secondary help, which is exactly what they need. So I could definitely see them. I could see them turning it around. As much as I hate to say it, they did have a good draft.
Now it's just on Sirianni.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see if he's really that guy or not.
the Eagles had a specific strategy in this draft, and that strategy was trade down and take falling players that are highly talented.
Yep.
And they completed the most trades of any team ever in the history of the NFL draft. So they nailed that strategy. Their strategy was acquire more capital and have more, have more dart throws at the board, right? The more darts we can throw, the more likely we are to get hits and just go over and over and over and over. And except for whenever their guy was there, they would use that capital to go grab the guy they wanted, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, I saw that too, that they already are set up to have 9 draft picks next year.
Yeah. So lots of finessing in this draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. My winner of the NFL draft are the Los Angeles Chargers. Nobody's really talking about the Chargers, and they had a really good draft. They got the best offensive lineman in the draft, which in a Jim Harbaugh offense is very important. Look at everywhere he's went. Michigan ran the football. 49ers ran the football. Stanford ran the football. Like, everything he did revolves around the trenches, and he went out and got the best player in the draft in the trenches. So great first overall pick. He goes out and get Ladd McConkey after he falls into the second round. Great route runner at a very high position of need for them. He gets Junior Colson, a Michigan linebacker who he knows very well for obvious reasons. He gets to pick his guy, bring him into Los Angeles to play with him. He goes and gets 2 good cornerbacks in Tarheeb Still. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his first name. I was watching some film on him. Really sticky guy. One of the few good man cover corners in the NCAA. Like a guy that you like watching. You go, oh, that dude, he doesn't know football that well, but he could play man. So, and then Cam Hart out of Notre Dame. More of your stereotypical zone cover corner. So he gets one of each there. More darts at the dartboard there in the later rounds. They get a running back out of Troy. They get a Michigan wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson, who you've probably heard. He had that great catch. I believe it was against TCU, where you hear the Cornelius Johnson, if you watch Michigan football at all. And then Brendan Rice out of USC, who was Caleb Williams' top target last year, obviously. So I just thought that was a really solid overall draft for a team that has a star quarterback, just signed a star head coach, has decent talent on their defense, and they just bolstered their depth huge. I feel like their biggest position of need is running back, and they drafted one, and they have a veteran starter. So I saw this as a big W for the Chargers. I mean, they're the Chargers, so they're kind of similar to the Lions. They always end up blowing it somehow, but it's just, I feel like this was a huge dub. I'll lead us off with the biggest L's, though. We'll just circle back around the other way. And my biggest L was actually somebody that everybody is saying had one of the best drafts of anybody. And it wasn't for any specific reason. They got some good value. I don't really like draft grades, and that's why we're doing the biggest winner, biggest loser, because I feel like the draft grades are dumb and we don't know how these guys are going to pan out until year 4 anyways. I just wasn't a huge fan of the way the Detroit Lions were trading in this draft. I feel like they gave up too much at some spots, trading back and trading forward. And so, honestly, because I'm such a hater in the way of I don't like giving draft grades, that's really the only thing I didn't like about this draft for any one specific team was I felt like Detroit wasn't smart with the way they were trading picks. And so that's why they're my biggest L. It's not really anything to do with the talent they acquired, the holes they didn't fill, the holes they did fill, anything of that result, because I don't feel like we will know that until 4 years from now. So just based off of bad trades, in my personal opinion, I picked the Detroit Lions, but I will acquiesce to Riley, who probably has a better biggest loser than I did.
I do have a much better biggest loser, and that is my Buffalo Bills. Now,
they are your Buffalo. They are your Buffalo.
Look, you guys gave them to me.
When I said it, it was, what do you mean, my Buffalo Bills?
Brenner,
now you say they're your Buffalo.
Our father told us to never decline anything that's free. I mean, you guys are giving me the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills.
I'm going to take them.
let's start with the trade. So you decide to trade down, which I don't think that was the biggest deal. But you decide to trade down with the Chiefs, who are your biggest rival. Screw the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Jets. The Chiefs have been your biggest rival for the last, 3 years, 4 years?
They have been the number one opposition in you getting to the Super Bowl for the past 6 seasons.
Yes, and you decide that's who I'm going to trade down with. And then after you do trade down, in the moment, they were speculating that they traded out of the first round to buy time to negotiate a trade for a Brandon Ayuk, a T. Higgins, something like that. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. You trade down, you're trying to work out a trade for a big-name wide receiver. And instead, you draft Keon Coleman, who is not going to pick up Stephon Diggs' workload in his first season. And even if he does pan out, he may not be able to pick up that load. I mean, Stephon Diggs is one of those guys when he is
top 10 guy.
When he is on point, he is one of the best.
Top 10 guys.
But for all those reasons, I don't like where Buffalo's at. I think right now they're probably sitting at second in their division, but the Dolphins blew a 3-game lead last year, so I think they're still in contention for the division.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Spoon, who you guys your biggest loser?
Are you ready for this one?
Are you ready? Boom, boom.
So it's gonna be a team that I know you're gonna disagree with for sure, Brenner.
Oh,
I swear to God, if you say the Minnesota Vikings on the cover of this screen,
so
we're gonna throw hands.
Just for me, before I name my biggest loser, I just want to go up there. I'll go ahead and say that the Vikings were an honorable mention for the biggest winner, but I thought you were gonna pick them.
Nope, I wasn't.
I was letting you take them, but they were one of my biggest winners of the draft. Couple biggest losers, real quick. Defensive players, obviously. Just wanted to bring that up. Obviously, none of them being taken in the top 14. That's kind of a big letdown if I'm a defensive player.
Yep.
Nobody said the Broncos or the Falcons, so I'm kind of shocked there. I figured one of y'all would say that, but neither one of you did.
Broncos were my runner-up, and I was like, you know what? Who knows? I could be totally wrong on how these players turn out. I'm just going to take the non-player option.
Well, the Falcons were probably my runner-up because obviously, we're going to talk about quarterbacks in a minute.
Yeah, we'll take quarterbacks in a minute.
Okay, anyway, get to the point, Cooner. I'm sorry. My biggest loser is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Ooh.
So
I do disagree with this.
You do. I know you do.
I do disagree with it. Hold up.
Hear me out. And it all comes down to their first pick. That is what really shocked me. Okay.
Hold on.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on.
Brock Bowers?
Hold on, my guy. Hold up. Okay. So hear me out. First of all, they picked 13. I could have swore they were taking Michael Penix. I swore up and down they were going to get a brand new QB. No. They're sticking with Gardner Minshew, and it's kind of tough to compete with that as a head coach whenever you're in the same division with Justin Herbert and you're in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. Like we already know who Gardner Minshew is. We've seen what he can do. And I feel like they should have probably tried to trade up to get the quarterback of the future that they want. And that would have also given their head coach Aiden Pierce, right?
Yeah, Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. Why did I want to say Aiden? I don't know. They wanted to give Antonio Pierce. It probably would have given him more time being the coach if they would have went with the quarterback because, I mean, obviously they want the quarterback and the coach to be together for a couple of years before they just call it quits. So taking Brock Bowers, I don't know. I feel like they're definitely going to have like a 5, probably go like 5-12, a 6-11 year, and then goodbye. They're going to fire their coach again. I'm just saying. Now, here's the other reason why I don't really like the Brock Bowers pick. That's a lot. Taking him at 13, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. That is a lot to put in for a tight end, especially whenever the Raiders' when the Raiders' biggest needs are at offensive line and in the secondary. and you had all these guys on the board. You have your pick, my guy. You could have had 2 great offensive linemen to help cover Gardner Minshew. You could have taken a huge top corner there. They did get a little bit of a steal in Jackson Powers-Johnson, not going to lie, but that's a center. Why didn't you try to pair him up with a great offensive tackle or a great offensive guard to really boost your line? That's what I'm confused about. I don't really like the Brock Bowers pick. I think it would have made more sense for the Jets probably to take Brock Bowers. I mean, the Raiders already have a ton of weapons. They really don't need another weapon. It's just a flashy pick, in my opinion. That's what I think. So I know you're rolling over there. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but I mean,
Spoon, I will say a lot of the people I have seen who don't agree with the Brock Bowers pick are saying the same things you're saying. They should have traded up to go get a quarterback rather than staying where they were.
Right. It's either they could have done that, or they, like I said, they could have taken a great corner, which they need help in the secondary, or they could have taken another offensive lineman to match with Jackson Powers-Johnson if you don't get him where you got him.
And at that point, every corner was still on the board, were they not?
They would have had their pick at whichever corner they wanted because they were still all on the board. And Brenner just hates it.
He's over there tapping his finger.
He's like, I love Brock Bowers, damn it. He's a generational talent, okay?
Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Let's give Brenner the mic.
All right. First of all, okay, we have seen this time and time and time again. Just because you are set at a position and there is a generational talent on the board, you should not pass on that position. The Vikings had 2,000-yard receivers when they took Randy Moss. The 49ers had Joe Montana when they acquired Steve Young. Okay. We had Chester Taylor for the Vikings. He just rushed for 1,200 yards when we picked up Adrian Peterson at 7th overall. Like, that, of course, I'm a Vikings fan. I know more Vikings knowledge off the top of my head. Those are just a few examples. But Brock Bowers is an elite weapon. An elite weapon. He's going to be a Travis Kelce, a Darren Waller, a George Kittle, that kind of talent at the tight end position. And we've seen that the best teams in the NFL have those guys on their squad. They have a great tight end. So why you wouldn't want that it blows my mind. And on top of that, they have a quarterback in their building who almost took the Colts to the playoffs, who are a worse team than the Raiders. So I
know you're baffled.
I don't get, like, Gardner Minshew can lead your team to the playoffs. I'm not saying he's winning you a Super Bowl, but he can lead your team to the playoffs. Antonio Pierce, when he took over as head coach, the Raiders had a top 5 defense from there on out. You have Devontae Adams, and then you acquire another elite pass catcher. The only place I don't know who their starting running back is off the top of my head right now, but that's the only spot on offense that they're missing a playoff, like a wild card level starter. No other player they pick elevates their team this year more.
Another concern that I do have with Brock Bowers, and I know it's probably silly, you're going to laugh, but I think he's a little too short at the tight end position versus the other players that you're naming. Like they got 3-4 inches on him. I get he's tall, he's 6'3", but I mean most tight end, whenever I think of a tight end, I think of a 6'6", a 6'7" guy.
Yeah, I get it.
I feel like he's a little small. I'm worried about what he can. I mean, I know that in college he could block. I don't know how he's going to do with blocking in the NFL. That
Low man wins.
A little bit.
Low man wins.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I'm just saying that I think that was a huge mistake, and I think, or not a huge mistake, but I definitely think that they could have helped their team in other ways there with all the value that was there at the 13 instead of taking Brock Bowers.
I have seen a lot of the slander the Raiders are getting, and I want the world to know I loved that pick. I thought it was the best player available. He's a consensus top 10 pick amongst every single mock draft, and to get him at almost double his value is an absolute fucking steal. So it's the same value as getting a a second round guy in the 4th round. It's 100% the other way. Like 7 times 2 is 14. They got him at 13, right? 100 times 2 is 200. It's the same value. I couldn't figure out how to say that right in a shorter way, but it's the same value, right? So huge upside for a guy who's supposed to be as good as he's going to be. Like, it blows my mind that
It's
people
just,
are
man,
getting
it's just a lot of equity to put into a tight end, man. That's what
But-
worries me. It worries me.
But like Jalen Reagor, like the wide receivers don't always pan out. It's a lot of equity to put into any player. Like the bust rate is still going to be probably 50%. Like you're taking a 50-50 shot no matter who you take pretty much. So unless you're taking a center or a safety, those are pretty low
I mean,
percent.
you said edge rushers are low percent. Dallas Turner was there. Pair him up with Max Crosby. Dude, that defense would be nasty.
It would
Like,
be.
I'm
It
tell-
would
I'm
be. And
telling
we
you,
did
like,
that a
there's-
couple times.
we
We did that
did.
a couple times. So I'm not saying that I stand on that it's the thing that helps them the most this year. Maybe not in 5 years, but it helps them the most right now. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, but with that, let's talk some quarterbacks. Let's talk some quarterbacks. You guys ready? We've
Let's
been
do it.
teasing the people. We've been teasing them all week. Let's talk some quarterbacks. Riley, how you feeling about your quarterback right now?
I'm feeling great. But I got a question for you guys.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Can
Love it.
name a quarterback of recent memory who is walking into a better situation than Caleb Williams?
I don't know
Hmm.
if
I can't
there
think of one off the top of my head.
I don't know if
honestly.
there's one outside of this year's draft that is walking into a better situation.
So, with that in mind, what are your expectations of him in his first year?
For him to be like, what do you mean? Like what I think he's gonna do, or what his expectations are to meet the status of like as much hype as he's been built up? Because I don't believe in the hype.
What do you think he's going to do?
I think he's gonna have 3,800 to 4,200 yards, have 21 touchdowns, and have 15 interceptions. That's where I stand on.
reasonable.
He's gonna get the yardage, but he's a gunslinger, right? Like he's gonna throw bad throws, and in the NFL, you don't get to just throw bad throws. Like those get picked. Those get picked off. So, I've said this about Drake May. It's who he gets paired with, and your guys' coaching staff has been my biggest question mark of this entire process. And I have no doubt about Caleb Williams' talent and his coachability. It's if the coaches can coach him right to his maximum ability. And
But you liked Shane Waldron, didn't you? The old OC for Seattle.
I was kind of neutral on him. Didn't really hate him or like him.
So, one of the things that I do want to say, I would like to humble the Bears just a little bit.
Oh.
So I like the pick, I do. I don't. He's kind of on my bust radar, but I do think that he's probably one of the least likely ones to bust. But I'm sorry, like if you guys think you're gonna be Super Bowl contenders right now, you're not.
No, not the Super
No.
Bowl. I think the playoffs is realistic.
I mean, you might sneak in as like the last wild card. That's what my expectation would maybe be. That'd be like the
Yeah,
best
no. I'm
scenario.
not saying we're going to take the division,
But yeah,
we were
but
a
any Bears
7
fan.
we were a 7-win team with Justin Fields last year, and I think with the pieces we added, and the big question mark is what is Caleb Williams going to do?
Yep.
But I think 3 wins isn't far off.
No,
And then
I
you're
mean, I
at,
would-
in a week conference.
I mean, I could predict the Bears go 8-9, maybe 9-8 this year. I would say, I see him like 3 years from now. Probably give him at least 2 years. Probably the third year, that's whenever I would say, hey, if he progresses the way that everybody's predicting him to, give him that third year, y'all might be Super Bowl contenders.
And I've also heard a lot of comparisons to like he needs to have a CJ Stroud type rookie year. But
To bounce back from.
Yes, but I think this Chicago Bears team is better than the team CJ Stroud was drafted to. I don't think he has to go out there and play Superman ball all the time.
Yeah. We're driving Brenner crazy over there.
Yeah, no. I can see it.
Caleb's a great guy. I love his demeanor. I love his attitude. I love the fact that he is his brand. He makes his brand known and he stands on his fucking business. And I love that. I love somebody who is unapologetically them. I love everything about the guy. And other than the fact that he's a Chicago Bear, I hope the best for him. I hope that as a Bear, he is miserable enough to leave the organization within the next 5 years and go somewhere else that's not in the NFC North. That being said, I stand that Caleb Williams is going to be a generational talent. He's not a generational prospect. He's going to be a generational talent if the coaches do right by him. It is 100% on that coaching staff to turn him into Patrick Mahomes. They have the exact same ball of clay Andy Reid had building Patrick Mahomes. Can you build the second version when you have the blueprint? Like Andy Reid didn't have a blueprint for it, right? Like Andy Reid just sculpted it freehand, right? Like you have the tools, you have the blueprint, you have everything you need to make a Patrick Mahomes. Can you do it? Like, and that's what worries me about him. It's kind of like when the Raiders took Jamarcus Russell, right? Like there's the infamous story of Jamarcus Russell being given the VHS tapes. Like, hey, there's film on these. Watch these over the weekend, and we'll come back on Monday. And he goes, okay. Takes it home, and they're like, well, how was the film session? He goes, great. There was no film on the tapes. They were blank. They just want to see if he'd actually watch them. But they didn't do anything about it. They just tested him, and they were like, you don't work hard enough. You won't succeed, and then gave up on it. Like, take that guy and help him. Like, nurture him and help him be great. Like, it doesn't always work out. Johnny Manziel, plenty of people tried to nurture him. It was too late. Like, he took too long to figure it out. So, like, don't get me wrong. It doesn't work for everybody.
Another thing that bodes well in our favor is we have one of the easiest schedules in the league next year.
You do.
I think we played the top 5 worst teams from last year.
You'll play everybody in last place, and then whoever all the NFC North plays. So you guys have an easy schedule, but I would like to move on to Jaden Daniels now, and just say that he was my quarterback 1 in this draft as far as like quarterback readiness, who I think can be a star. He is Lamar Jackson 2.0 with a better arm. He did everything Lamar did in college, including winning a Heisman, including accounting for 50 total touchdowns. He did everything Lamar did, except he did in the SEC instead of the ACC. And peak SEC, mind that, So I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's got a great defense there in Washington. I think Dan Quinn isn't the best fit for him at head coach. I feel like he's talented enough to overcome it as long as they build the offense around him. If they shove him in the Matt Ryan 2016 offense that Dan Quinn had with Kyle Shanahan, probably not going to work out that great. But they have what's his name, Riley?
Terry McLaurin?
No, the USC coach.
Oh, Cliff Kingsbury.
They have Cliff Kingsbury's offense there in Washington. Similar to what a Kyler Murray runs, right? Or has been running in the NFL. I think they do just fine there in Washington. I think they're competing for even the top wild card spot potentially. I don't think Dallas or Philly beats them at home this year. I know that sounds crazy, Spoon, but
nope. I'm there.
I don't think they beat them at Washington this year. You have anything to add to that?
Well, it's not really about Jaden Daniels or his talent. It was more about Washington and how I love this pick. And with Dan Quinn at the helm and looking at their draft picks, it looks like they're literally building a team after the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely.
They took Lamar Jackson 2.0 and then went heavy defense, taking Jerzon Newton,
Austin Eckler.
Yep. And they got Austin Eckler. I think that they are literally setting this up to be the Baltimore Ravens 2.0.
Yeah,
except
I think it's
possibly better. And yeah, it's definitely scary coming from a Cowboys fan, seeing how great Washington and Philly did this draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, I think we all agree on how this Patriots situation is going down.
It's something good.
I love Drake May. I wish the best for him. I don't think he's going to pan out. I think he's the most likely bust candidate in this whole draft because of where he went. He's going to a first-time defensive head coach who has never worked with a quarterback, and so just doesn't look very.
You guys are looking at this all wrong, right?
Okay.
The Patriots know that Drake May is going to be a bust. That's why they took Bo Milton late. That is their true starter.
They did the opposite of RG3 and Kirk Cousins.
Yes, exactly. Yes. They know. They're just another
The problem with that is Joe Milton is the exact same thing as Drake May, just not as polished. That's the only issue with that. But no, I really did like Drake May. I think the Vikings wanted Drake May as like their quarterback one.
I mean, they tried trading up, didn't they?
Yeah. And I doubt they were trading up for McCarthy that high. So as much as I love McCarthy, I do think they wanted Drake May to try to mold him into a Herbert, a Josh Allen, that level of quarterback. But like I said on the episode earlier this week, they called the Patriots and said, hey, we'll give you 3 first-round picks in exchange for 1 and 2 mid-round picks. And the Patriots went, yeah, we're good. So the Vikings said, okay, cool. Have fun. Like, there's too much. You guys got anything else to add on Drake May?
Nope.
Nothing else? All right, next up.
Almost everything.
We got Michael Penix. Nobody said. So for those of you who are unaware, last Thursday, me, Spoon, and Riley and Dalton, we all hopped on the Instagram live and we were going back and forth during the draft. And I was in California at a buddy's house and his girlfriend was there. Her name's Courtney. She's a huge Broncos fan and she has a Broncos reporter that she follows that was at the draft. He was live tweeting from the draft and Atlanta's on the clock. And we're like, who are they going with? Is it Dallas Turner? Is it Jared Verse? Are they trading out of the pick? Like, what's going on here? Is Denver going to try to jump up and get their quarterback? Is Minnesota going to jump up and get their quarterback? What's going to go down? And then she says, Atlanta took Michael Penix. And I went, no, that's not. I looked her dead in the eyes and I went, that's a speculation thing. Like, that's what he thinks is going. That's not, there's no way he's doing that. And I told all the guys and everybody went, yeah, no, that's not happening. Like, no chance that's happening. Michael Penix at 8. Yeah. Okay. And she said it like 3 more times. And I literally looked her in the eyes 3 more times. Went, Courtney, he's speculating. Like I was mansplaining. Like that's not a real thing.
And then I think it popped up on my end. And then I was like, bro.
And then Spoon goes, the Falcons took Penix. And I went, what? And I looked at her and I went, the Falcons took Penix. And she goes, yeah, I know. And I was like, holy shit. What the is going on right now? I was so relieved. I was so happy. Kirk is, Kirk's off with his new wife in Atlanta. He's got the new hot girlfriend. And then she immediately goes, hey, can we add a third dude to the relationship? And he's like, what? And God, it's just the best. Everything is right in the world, and I don't care about Michael Penix. I don't think he's going to be all that great. I think his injury history cannot be ignored. You don't have 4 season-ending injuries and play till you're 35. It doesn't happen. He's going to go down. It's a matter of if, not when. And I think he has all the arm talent in the world, but he's the same thing as Sam Bradford was. End of story. I was stoked.
Here's my thoughts on it. So. Obviously, that I'm not a big fan of J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
But
no, we'll get into that in a minute.
I know we will. But the fact, I'm going to tell you right now, if they were going for a quarterback, they missed hard. Because I would have rather had J.J. McCarthy learning behind Kirk Cousins and then him take over the reins after Kirk is done because Kirk's getting old. J.J.'s younger. Michael Penix.
J.J. just turned 21.
Exactly.
Penix is about to turn 24.
If you're going quarterback, I think JJ would have been the move there. Let him learn behind Kirk for 3-4 years, which is exactly what happened in Atlanta. or not Atlanta.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, in Green Bay. Every
in
time
Green Bay,
they have the
in
quarterback,
Kansas City.
they learn for a few years, and then boom, they're studs. I think they missed big time on an opportunity to get JJ up there with Kirk.
Yeah, I've seen. Riley, do you have any thoughts on it?
So this has the potential to set this franchise back years. I mean, people are talking about, this kind of speculating, what does the worst case scenario look like? And I feel like they're not thinking bad enough.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Kirk Cousins, how old is he?
37.
37, coming off an Achilles tear.
First major injury of his life.
There is no promise that he is going to come back as the Kirk Cousins we've seen.
And we've seen guys. Let me say this one thing real quick. We've seen guys like Kirk, the Matt Ryans, the Phillip Rivers, those guys, right? One day they're here, and then the next day, Matt Ryan won an MVP in 2016, and by 2018 he was busting out of the league. So one day they're here, and then it just boom, done, out, gone.
And you go ahead and pay him what, $120 million the next 3 years?
110 over the next 3 seasons, guaranteed.
Yeah, and now it's on the Penix. What if he doesn't pan out? Now you have paid a quarterback too much money that isn't doing good, and your quarterback of the future is a bum who's 27 by the time his rookie deal's up. 28.
Yeah. Well, he would be 29. He'll be 24.
29 after his rookie deal.
He is 24.
I definitely think that the scouts and everyone was overhyping the quarterback talent here, because I do believe, obviously not with Caleb Williams, that's a generational talent, but you have other quarterbacks that the Falcons could take the next couple years.
Hold up. I think that Michael Penix would be, if he was 21 next year, if he was 21 this year, he would have been a top 3 pick if he didn't have injuries. If he had played 2 seasons like he played at Washington without getting hurt, Michael Penix would have been a top 3 pick. I guarantee it. He has that much talent. It's the injury history. He will get hurt again. It's a matter of if not when, like I said before. Yeah. You can't have 4 career-ending injuries. And granted, he's come back and played 2 fully healthy seasons. That's 2 full years of wear and tear on an already broken car.
I just feel like this has the potential to possibly be just like the Cleveland Browns drafting a new quarterback every year because they just screwed. They screwed up.
So Riley, you said they're not looking like worst case scenario enough. So
yes.
Imagine this, if you will. So Kirk Cousins isn't ready to start week 1 with his Achilles, right? He has a setback in his recovery, and he's slated to start week 3 instead of week 1. So Penix starts the first 2 weeks, gets dominated, just gets thrown around like a rag doll, kills all of his confidence right away. Kirk comes back, right? Oh, we have Kirk now. Everything's fine. Kirk's other Achilles is now 30% more likely to tear. It's a statistical fact. Your other Achilles becomes 30% more likely to tear after you've torn one. That's all I heard about with Kirk Cousins in the re-signing process. Are we going to re-sign Kirk? Well, his other Achilles is now in danger, and yada, yada, yada. His other Achilles tears week 7. And now he's coming off 2 torn Achilles in 12 months. Michael Penix has no confidence and goes out there and gets ragdolled again. And now you're paying Kirk $60 million this year, $40 million next year, $10 million guaranteed the 3rd season. And your quarterback of the future is shot out of the gate, shot down. Now you have used this 1st round pick to select a player who's worthless to you, and you can't sign anybody because your quarterback that you paid all this money to is now deciding, I think I'm just going to retire.
Yeah.
So imagine if something like that happened. And granted, this is worst case scenario stuff. Don't get me wrong.
But I think the odds of it being worst case scenario are greater than the odds that it works out.
Yeah, the odds of Kirk Cousins playing another 4 seasons as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL,
being
and then
a great mentor and
and then
he's never played in.
Over for Penix, seamlessly taking over for Cousins and going on to have this 10-year career and play till he's 38.
It
just doesn't seem very likely.
Yes,
it just baffles me that you just paid that much to a quarterback, and rather than
4 years, $180 million is the total contract length.
And he's coming off an injury. So what do? I mean, if you're gonna do something that I don't know, something logical, draft a freaking lineman to protect your new quarterback that you just got.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't take someone that's just going to back him up. You just wasted a first-round pick that is going to sit on your bench more than likely all year.
Yeah.
What do you
Not
do?
even
You
wasting
could
a
have
first-round pick, a top 10 pick.
yeah,
a top 10 pick.
You could have drafted an offensive lineman or Dallas Turner or even
And it's
take
obvious.
Liatu Latu there because he's at least going to be starting for you. Like, what
It's
are you
obvious
doing?
that nobody else wanted Penix, right? Like the Vikings liked McCarthy, the Broncos liked McCarthy and Nix. Like Penix wasn't going to the other teams. None of the other teams were going to trade out. Like the only threat you had was the Raiders potentially taking Penix. And I think if Penix and Bowers are on the board, I think you still take Bowers. Like Penix is not this like you can tell me like he put out that EKG letter, like he's showing he got that dog in it, like all that stuff. You can tell me all the shit you want. You can have the best mental attitude all you want. Like you cannot tell me you haven't had 4 career-ending injuries. And people go, well, he's come back from all 4. So he's got that heart and he's got that soul that you want. And you're quite, and I get that. And that takes a lot of mental fortitude to come back from 4 career-ending injuries. You can come back as many times as you want. Eventually, you're just broken. Like, eventually, you just break. The mind can be ready. Like Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant retired in year 20. He said 100 times, like, I'm still good. I'm still good to play. My body can't do it. Like, it can't physically do it anymore. And so, eventually, your body just doesn't let you do these things. And having 4 career-ending injuries before you turn 24, that is not on the up and up. So... But does anybody else have anything to add on Penix?
No, I
Pretty
don't think
much
so.
summed it all up.
Yeah.
We pretty much said all there is to say about it. We are all shocked and flabbergasted by this pick. Next up, as I said earlier this week, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. I was so stoked. I know Spoon isn't super high on JJ McCarthy, and we're just going to jump right into this. JJ McCarthy won 2 state championships in high school, lost 1 game in high school. JJ McCarthy won a state championship or a national championship as a starter in college, made the college football playoff the year before that, and put up 45 points in that game that he lost. He lost to TCU, who eventually went on to lose to Georgia. JJ McCarthy's just a winner. He's a winner, and he's a selfless leader, and he can make every throw you need him to. There's just nothing he can't do. He just wasn't asked to shoulder the load until they needed him to. Like that's so. Spoon, is it fair to say that you would be higher on JJ McCarthy if you had seen him in a high pressure situation truly put the team on his back and deliver them a win in clutch scenarios time and time again?
Possibly, yeah.
You tend to believe he would be better if you had seen the body of work more broad instead of the narrow body of work he has.
I just think that the tape that we have is so little and it's such a smaller sample size versus the other QBs that I'm not sold yet.
That's kind of what I feel like most people's problem with JJ is.
Yeah.
And while I understand the hesitation that people have, all we do have is the body of work. All we have is tape of him delivering. He was the best quarterback in the nation on 3rd down and long. Best of anybody. So when the running game stopped working, he still delivered. Even like, we talk about football's a game of momentum, right? Like I feel like we can all agree on that, right? Yeah. It's a game of momentum. And whenever you get stopped, whenever you hand the ball off on 1st and 10 and get stopped for 2 yards, then 2nd and 8 and get stopped for 1 yard, and it's 3rd and 7, and you've had 4 pass attempts and you're midway through the 2nd quarter and you're not really in a flow yet, and you have to just run a play and drop a dime over a linebacker to a wide receiver running a crossing route 18 yards downfield, and you nail that every single time. I feel like that shows that like you don't need the momentum, and you are the momentum. You are the driving force. And while he definitely wasn't the engine that made that offense run, Blake Corum and that offensive line were the engine. Like, do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that JJ is the reason they won a national championship. I am saying that JJ McCarthy was the driver.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Do you think JJ will be a system quarterback? And if you don't think he will be, what trait does he have that makes him a top-tier quarterback?
So people constantly undervalue JJ's arm strength. So that he has an amazing arm, and people didn't get to see it a lot. And so you tend to be like, well, he probably doesn't have that good of an arm. He didn't get to throw that much. He has the two hardest throwers ever at the combine are Joe Milton III, who we talked about earlier, and Josh Allen at 62 miles an hour. Next up, JJ McCarthy at 61 miles an hour. Like, this dude has an absolute whip, and it's all based off technique and throwing motion, not overall strength. Like, he just has the technique. He has everything you want. And the number one thing I love about JJ McCarthy, the absolute number one thing that no matter who is talking about JJ McCarthy says, is he is the definition of a born leader. So there was a really cool story. Before I say this, I should grain of salt here. Being a born leader doesn't mean you'll just instantly be good in the NFL. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying, as far as traits like you asked for, this is one of those things that I'm like, oh, I want my quarterback to have that. And when he was 17, 18 years old, going to Michigan to do like his prospect visit, like the visits they do, they said that he was in the locker room and asked the coaches, like, where are all the other guys at? And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, where is everybody else? Like, every other visit, where are those guys at? And they're like, well, they're all spread out over campus. And he's like, okay, well, can you bring them here? And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, can you bring all the guys that you currently have on a visit on campus to the facility? And they're like, well, they'll all be here later. He's like, perfect. When they get here, I want to meet with everybody. And they're like, okay. And so they do a lunch, they do whatever. Later in the day, they're all in the same like hall. And JJ stands up and asks if he can say something. And the coaches are like, yeah, absolutely. Come on up. So he gets up in front of the room of just, a bunch of random prospects he doesn't know, and just goes on a rant. And the rant ended with, if you're here to party, if you're here to chase girls, if you're here to do anything other than win a national championship, get the fuck out of my locker room. And then he walked back, sat down in his seat. And like, that's like, as an 18-year-old kid, I wasn't that, like, first to admit, I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not that guy. So like, I want my quarterback to have that, right? Like that overwhelming drive. And obviously he's selfless. How many times did you hear JJ McCarthy complain that he wasn't getting to throw the ball enough? How many times did you hear him complain like, oh, if we wouldn't have, if we would have had me throwing the ball more, we would have put up 38 points instead of 24 this week. Like, you never heard him complain once. Never one time. And like, this is a guy who, with his arm, like, he was a prolific high school passer. Like, he won 2 state championships as a high school quarterback and set 2 state records for most yards in a season. Like, this guy was like known for throwing. And then he goes to Michigan and Harbaugh goes, listen, I love it, and we're going to use it, but only when we have to. And he just went, yes, sir, let's do it. And that's my JJ McCarthy rant. Like, I'm not saying that the body of work is there, and I understand the questions. But as far as everything else you could want in a quarterback, he's got it. So
I guess we'll see.
I understand why you're not high on him. And now we move on to a guy where it's the opposite. And I should sit down, shut up, and drink a cup of coffee while you guys talk, because I don't have many good things to say about this gentleman. Bo Nix, ladies and gentlemen. He is the Denver Broncos' most recent draft pick at quarterback. There was a lot of speculation that that's who they wanted all along. Now, as we discussed earlier on the show this week, I don't think that's who they wanted all along. I think they wanted JJ, and before that, I think they wanted Jaden Daniels. I think is who they would have preferred the most. But I mean, can I start with just why I'm not a huge Bo Nix fan, Spoon? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or do you want to start?
I mean,
yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot.
I'm just gonna keep mine short and sweet anyway.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet.
I don't hate Bo Nix. I think there's a lot of there's tons of tape that you can watch on this guy. He doesn't really. I mean, if you're trying to build a system quarterback, which is what I see the NFL going more towards, kind of, I think Bo Nix is the perfect one. I think I feel like he would fit right in whatever system Sean Payton does. He'll go out and he'll do it. And I think he has the athleticism too to do more RPOs, which I think is something that, like, obviously Lamar Jackson has benefited from tremendously. Taysom Hill, I mean, I've been saying for years that I wish I could see more Taysom Hill whenever the Saints play, because he's just, every time he has the ball, something great happens. That's kind of what I see in Bo Nix. So I feel like I'm finally getting what I wanted to see in Taysom Hill possibly in Denver, and I think it has a huge upside in my opinion. Do I think taking him at 12? Yeah, that's kind of crazy to me. I wouldn't have taken him at 12. I think if you really wanted Bo Nix, I mean, I don't know, a lot of people made dumb decisions. I mean, the Falcons did too. But I feel like if you really wanted Bo Nix, and if I was the general manager, I probably would have traded back a little bit, get a little bit of equity, go back a couple spots, and then take Bo Nix there. But I mean, obviously, all the teams were just going quarterback crazy in the first round. So,
yeah.
If you didn't take him there, you probably weren't going to get him.
Yeah,
sadly,
no,
but.
I could agree with that. I could see a world in which he went to another team before the Broncos had a chance to snag him again, and I can agree with it. And you said Taysom Hill. I feel like, I don't remember if you said it first or I said it first, but we've talked about how...
We talked about it.
With that,
I just know that you're going to compare him to him, and I'm just going to say
Yeah.
I love Taysom Hill. I think he should have been the starter for New Orleans. Like, as soon as Breeze left, they should have just given him the reins and tried it out and see what he could do, because he's a playmaker. That's what he does.
He is a weapon. I don't disagree with that. He is a versatile Swiss Army knife weapon. I firmly believe that Taysom Hill can't play quarterback because of his hand size. He has the same size hands I do, and that hinders you when you're trying to throw the ball 75 yards on a dot. It just does. Like, there's a reason I'm not an NFL quarterback, and it's not just because I'm 5'8". It's because I have, under 9-inch hands, and I don't run a 4.3 40 and all these other number of things.
You're not over 6 foot either.
Yeah. Taysom Hill has a lot of those things that I don't have, but he doesn't have the hand size. Like, that does play a key part to an extent in being an NFL quarterback. Drew Brees had like 11-inch hands. Dude was only 6 foot, but he had massive mitts, so he could grip the ball and he could sling it. And that plays a huge part in being an NFL quarterback. Bo Nix does have decent-sized hands. That's not a concern for me with him. My concern with Bo Nix is he went to Auburn, and he struggled heavily against the SEC defenses. So he transferred from Auburn to Oregon. He struggled at Oregon. And then they went, okay, what do we do? All right, how about this? We're gonna make the offense bare bones. We're going to ask you to make 1 or 2 reads of play, basically a deep read, and if it's not there, then you just dump it off short. Or we're just going to have the short read be your first option. And that's what they did, and it worked amazing. He ran that offense to perfection. But there is not an offense half that simple in the NFL. Every offense he could have been drafted into is at least 4 times harder to learn and at least twice as heavy, like volume-wise. So for him to succeed against Pac-12 defenses, he had to have the watered-down baby version of the offense he had already been running for a year after not getting it done against higher-level competition with pro-style offenses. So I just don't think he has what it takes between the ears to be an NFL quarterback. I think he absolutely has the physical traits to succeed as a weapon in the NFL. And I think that's why Sean Payton was so high on him and was willing to take him this high, because Sean Payton believes that in his mind, this guy has all the physical tools and I just have to work with his brain and turn his brain into a quarterback. Like, that's all I have to do. And it's easy for Payton to be vain in that regard because he's really good, right? I just don't think there's certain guys that just don't have it, right? Johnny Manziel just didn't have it between the ears to play quarterback. Jake Locker just didn't have it between the ears to play quarterback. Christian Ponder just didn't have it between the ears. Like, sometimes you just don't have it. Josh Rosen just didn't have it. They have all the physical skills you want. You just don't have the mental talent to play quarterback. And I think that's the category Bo Nix falls into in the NFL. I feel like you could have put Taysom Hill in Oregon's offense last year, and Oregon would have been more productive. Now, granted, Taysom Hill is older. He's played in the NFL, like all number of things. But I feel like as an athlete and as a quarterback, Bo Nix was more special as an athlete than he was a quarterback at Oregon. And I really do believe he could be Taysom Hill 2.0. I think this dude could line up and go play tight end sometimes, and he could run at running back, and he could be on punt return, and he could do all these wild things athletically. I do not believe he can stand there and drop back and put 40 passes on his arm and win a football game. And I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, that's where I come in. I'm just like, yeah, I think he absolutely can. I think he did it. I mean, and I know that you always discredit his time in Auburn. Auburn has not been good for a while. They don't really have any weapons. Oregon has been getting more weapons. I mean, they had Troy Franklin, who just went in the NFL draft. I don't remember. Can you tell me an Auburn receiver that you remember in recent years?
No, not really.
They haven't really had any weapons. And guess what? Even with him being at a shit Auburn team, his completion rate or percentage rate still went up every single year. And then he gets to Oregon and he just breaks out. He didn't have a bad year in Oregon. His first year in Oregon was great. He threw for almost 3,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's a pretty damn good year if you ask me. And then the second year, he just exceeded over that. Just kept rolling with what he already knew, what he had. I mean, I'm sure the NIL deals definitely helped out.
Yeah,
bringing in more players to. I mean, obviously they want to go to their teams, and they see that Oregon did pretty good, so that's going to help them get more around him. What does worry me about Bo Nix is the fact that he's probably not going to have that many great weapons in Denver, so it's probably not going to look good for him. Honestly, I feel like that's
what worries me about Bo Nix. I think if Bo Nix goes to the Bears, we're talking differently.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's definitely a different conversation.
If the Bears go Joe Alt at number 1 and then pick Bo Nix at 8 or at 7 or 9, sorry, 9.
I'm telling you, if the Raiders pick Bo Nix at 13, we're having a completely different conversation. I think.
I agree with that. I think he would succeed a lot better in Las Vegas than he will in Denver. Denver has the coach. So Denver is the exact opposite of my worry with Chicago. They have all the coaching there. He's just going to get absolutely ragdolled on the field because he's going to have nobody else out there with him.
Yep, and they're about to lose their number 1 receiver. So
yeah, so I don't see a world in which Bo Nix succeeds. And
the best thing that they can do, I mean, I'm sure Sean Payton's going to be smart about it. Just don't give up on him, because obviously you got to put some talent around him. It's going to take a few years to put a little bit of talent around him, and that's what you got to build with. You just can't give up on him, kind of like what they did with Wilson. Because Wilson was my MVP several weeks last year. Several weeks he was my MVP. I was like, dude threw for 300 yards, like 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Like, dude did great. I don't understand what we're talking about. Well, I don't know why people are still slandering him, but. Yeah.
Looks like Bo Nix's best weapon at Auburn was Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
Tank Bigsby? Isn't he a running back?
Plays for the Jags.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't have any weapons there in Auburn. And, like, whenever people think of the SEC, they don't think of Auburn. There's, like, 5, 6, 7, 8 different schools that people go to before they pick Auburn as their last choice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's why I'm not really I'm not discrediting him for that, because I mean, I know that you're going to say Jaden Daniels was tremendous in the SEC. Why couldn't Bo Nix do it? Well, Jaden Daniels also had a lot better weapons. Okay?
He had 2 elite receivers at LSU, and granted, he didn't have much outside. He didn't have much outside of that, but he did have 2 elite weapons at LSU. And I'm not trying to discredit Jaden Daniels at all, but he was definitely in a better. I'm not trying to say Bo Nix was in the best position ever, but there's a reason that Drake May was at North Carolina and just went as a top 3 pick, because Drake May showed he has the tools to be an elite level quarterback, regardless of the talent around him. And Bo Nix doesn't have that. But I'm gonna go with Tank Bigsby was his best weapon at Auburn.
I'm glad that you looked that up for me.
Yeah, no, I was curious because I couldn't honestly name a receiver. I was like, I should look up and see what his weapons were because I hadn't looked at that approach. And I am, if anything, I like to argue and I like to speculate, but I'm always more than willing to admit when I am wrong. If I'm proven wrong, I will absolutely admit I was wrong. So if Bo Nix turns into something special, you will absolutely hear me just
probably won't happen.
Just slapped around silly.
I think stealing Bo Nix is like a top 15 quarterback one year.
I promise you, Riley will be right there with the Bo Nix receipts for me. He will be right there.
Oh yes. No, I make sure you know when you're wrong.
Yeah, he likes to pretend I'm wrong sometimes, even though I'm not.
So are we going to talk about one last quarterback, or is that all we got?
Who you got?
I just want to give a shout out.
Baby.
I was going to say I think the
QB1
Saints had a steal with Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, dude. Spencer Rattler worries me, man. I mean, he is.
I know, but all the scouts and everyone, all I'm hearing is that this dude could be a starter.
Oh, no. I mean, he scares me in the way of like, this dude could have been like, after Kyler Murray went to the NFL, right? Like Spencer Rattler was next man up in that OU offense. And like, that was like, okay, I get it. Like he was the betting favorite for Heisman. Like they had just, Jalen Hurts had won a Heisman, Baker Mayfield had won a Heisman, Kyler Murray had won a Heisman. And then Spencer Rattler goes there, gets beat out by Caleb and gets threatened by Caleb. And then obviously Caleb ends up going to USC and Spencer Rattler ends up going to South Carolina. And Spencer Rattler never really panned out as an elite level pick, but he has the talent. Yeah. Like he has the raw physical talent. It's just, can New Orleans mold him into, like they have a very raw piece of clay. Can they turn that into a quarterback?
I was hearing a lot of talk on Twitter that a lot of GMs were bringing up that Netflix documentary he did. Yeah. Well, was it QB1 Under the Lights or
that Rattler did?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know he did one.
Yeah. No, I believe it was maybe his freshman year of college.
Okay,
but he did not portray himself very well in front of the cameras. And I guess that scared away a couple GMs.
I mean, yeah, I could totally see that if you're, but then again, you're also an 18-year-old kid, which 18-year-old kids make mistakes all the time. Like you're dumb at that age. Your brain's not developed. You don't know what you know what you're doing consciously, but you're not thinking about the results of your actions at that time, which is why a guy like JJ McCarthy, to me, like, that's why I love him so much, is that when he was that old, he was already thinking 4 years down the road of like, yeah, we're a 2-4 team now, but I want to fucking win. Mm-hmm. So, and Spencer Rattler obviously doesn't have that, and we're not talking about JJ McCarthy anymore. Spencer Rattler has the physical tools to be a quarterback at the NFL level. Does he have the mental acuity and the determination and the work ethic to realize, I have set myself back a number of years. I could have been something great. I still have the opportunity to be something great. Does he have the drive to flip that script and be like, I'm going to go be something great?
Right.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Obviously the Saints think there's some chance. I wouldn't put a whole lot of, stock
I just don't hate drafting a bit.
I don't either. I don't hate him there at all. Like that's absolutely, I wouldn't have hated him at the end of the second round because like I said, he had the talent for Lincoln Riley to be like, yeah, I'm going to choose you over Caleb Williams to start. Like he had that level of talent. Like that's like Caleb Williams can be 18 and Rattler can be 19. But at the end of the day, Lincoln Riley was like, yeah, I'm going to go with Rattler for now. And then obviously later down the road, Rattler showed that he wasn't the guy. So he went with Caleb, and Caleb just got picked first overall. So you're telling me there's a guy who originally was, looked at as a higher ceiling guy at a certain point in time than the future number one overall pick? not a bad guy to have around just in case.
Yep.
So I really liked it. I do want to touch on one more thing, completely not draft related. Just a little tidbit for everybody in the NFL. Do you guys know where the draft was this year? Can anybody tell me where the draft was?
Detroit.
So Detroit. So I was curious what the numbers say about the likelihood of the Detroit Lions making it to the Super Bowl next year, because they're kind of poised to make a Super Bowl run. They have the tight end, they have the wide receiver one, they have the running backs, they have a quarterback who's been there before. They have a great. They don't have a defense. They have a great top 3 offense. They have a bottom half of the league defense, which is the only thing hindering them. And I feel like they made some good picks that could possibly help them shore up the defense in a couple areas. And I feel like they could get to that 20th overall, that 15th overall defense this year and really make a run, which I hate, but it's the facts. And so I went back and I looked at every single NFC Championship game to see how many teams that lost the previous year's NFC Championship made the Super Bowl the next season. And I found that it had happened 10 times for the entire Super Bowl NFC Championship era. And only 3 of those times has the team. So one team lost, right? So, for example, in 2022, the San Francisco 49ers lost in the NFC Championship. In 23, they made the Super Bowl. For Detroit to do it, the action would have to take place in back-to-back years. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that, out of the 10 times, has only happened 3 times. So all in all, if you take the 30%, so the 10% chance that it happens 10 total times out of the 59 Super Bowls, right? And then you take the 3% chance, or the 3 out of 10 chance, that equates out to about a 5.1% chance that Detroit makes and wins the Super Bowl. Do you guys think that Detroit is higher or lower than 5% chance to win the Super Bowl next season? Would you give them higher or lower odds?
Why are we even giving them a percentage?
Ooh,
It's Detroit.
Riley's saying 0.
They have, decades of shitty football on tape, and now they're Super Bowl contenders after one.
Hey, don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I don't like Detroit. I think Detroit's a poverty franchise, and if it weren't for this last season, they would unequivocally be the worst professional sports franchise in North American sports history, without equal. Okay.
I think they should be lucky to make it past the wild card round, and I will leave it at that.
No, I don't think that. I feel like if I'm giving all 32 teams in the 100, and like I'm giving a percentage to each one, I would probably give Detroit a little higher. I mean, if I'm just going overall, I would probably say, I don't know, I mean, just them to win the Super Bowl period, probably like a 42% chance.
42? You're almost giving them a 50. Whoa.
It's
Hold on,
dude,
you're saying-
because I'm
hold
sitting
on,
here,
you're
I'm
saying-
looking at the NFC.
But hold on, you're
Oh.
saying that if we ran a simulation, if we played out
Oh
next
no, never mind. No,
three times, that they
Then-
would win it at least one of the 3.
I would say so. Maybe a little lower. Maybe a little
Wow.
lower. Probably maybe probably at like 33%. I would say they at least win one of them if we do a simulation.
Oh wow, that is insane. I
think
mean, I
so.
saw 5%, and I was like, 1 out of every 20. I could see that. I mean, that was a 5%. Yeah, I can see that, because the Chiefs are winning 50% of them, like straight up. Like the Chiefs are winning 10 out of the 20 tries, and then the Bills are probably making at least 2 of those.
No,
So the
I don't
Bills
think
are-
the Bills would make one.
No, last season. I'm not talking about. This
Oh,
upcoming
last season. I thought you were talking about this
Yeah.
upcoming season.
Well, technically we are, so I don't know
Yeah.
why I said the Bills, but in
Yeah.
my brain, the Bills were last season. So take the Bills out, but the Chiefs are winning 50% of them. The Niners are winning at least 5 of them. And then you have the Ravens, who, if they don't lose one game to Kansas City, probably win 4 or 5 of them, and that's the.
But I mean,
whole lot right there.
I would have Detroit over probably Philly over the Cowboys.
What?
I wouldn't. I would have both the Cowboys and Philly over Detroit.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm like
Better
the Bears
defense.
beat
I like
them-
Detroit.
beat him in the first game and lost by a score the second game. Like this
Yeah,
is
dude, the
not the
Vikings-
team everyone
Nick
is
Mullins-
chopped up to be.
Yeah, Nick
Jared
Mullins
Goff
like,
is not a top 5 quarterback. Their defense
No.
is garbage. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not
is a
elite.
top 10 receiver. He's
No.
you will give him the respect he
Nope.
deserves.
He
He's
deserves
the
I will
second
not.
best receiver in the NFC North.
Oh no.
Yeah, I said
No.
it. It's a fact.
No.
He came to the Bears
No.
today. He'd be wide receiver 1.
No.
Yes,
Not a chance.
absolutely,
No.
absolutely.
This is the fact that we're even talking about this is ridiculous.
It is an absolute. I mean, I shouldn't say it's an absolute. Him and DJ Moore are both very close to each other. They are neck and neck. You could go either way with it, but I would take Amon-Ra.
Is Detroit even the best team in the division right now?
Roster wise, like whole roster.
Whole team,
I think
coaching,
so.
Man,
everything.
I
Man,
think
Ben
so.
Johnson is a real fucking OG, man. He is good.
But he's not the head
carries that
coach.
team. No, but he has complete
He's
control.
limited to one side of the ball.
But he's so good with that one side, it doesn't matter. That's the crazy part, is they made the NFC Championship with their head coach actively dragging them down. Which
But who did
blows
they-
my mind.
Who did they play on the way to the title game
Was it just the Eagles? Didn't they beat the Eagles?
when they were on a 7-game losing streak? Or
I know they beat the, I think they beat the, hold on. Let me look it up. I'm looking it up. Pulling it
Yep.
up. Oh, that's the 2021. I actually clicked 21, so I got to give it a second to load, and then I'll pull up to 23.
you're good.
We are rolling deep into this. We are almost done, ladies and gentlemen.
Deep.
We're going deep. Go ahead and give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about the Detroit Lions. So, almost there.
Maybe.
Did you like, comment, and subscribe? Bet you didn't. Probably should. Still waiting. All right. So
I was saying with
no, so
Detroit,
they
you
beat
could
the Rams.
you
They
could have
beat
argued,
the Rams, and then
Yep.
they beat the Bucks.
and then they should have beat the 49ers.
They
They
beat
were
the
up on
Rams
them.
by 1 point. They beat the Rams by 1 point.
That Rams
Yeah,
team was
neither of
better than
those are.
this, though. The Rams were not a bad
stellar
team this
to
year.
me.
The Rams were good. The Rams came on really hot late, and they
Mhm.
were really good down the stretch. The Bucks team overplayed their
Yeah.
value. They were good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting that, but they performed better than I think we expect them to next season, or at this season. And then
The Lions blew a 24-7 lead.
yeah, the Lions blew a lead. Like that's what it is. Dan Campbell's defense gave way. Like that's what happened. Like the reason Dan Campbell is in Detroit was to fix the defense and take them to a championship. And the thing they needed to have happen gave way. Dan Campbell
But-
couldn't get it done. It's the thing I've been saying since he's got there. He is Mike Tice 2.0. He is a phenomenal motivator, a wonderful human being to have in your building, and a great guy to run through a brick wall for. The dude doesn't do X's and O's well, and he gets out coached constantly. Either give up the defensive play calling or get out. Like that's what Detroit needs to do to be great, is he needs to relinquish the defense, and I don't think he will.
I just think that what they did with this draft definitely helped out their defense. So, I mean, it got
Yeah,
them.
but it doesn't matter if your defensive play caller is calling the wrong plays.
Okay.
So, all right, but that's all we
Totally
got
fair.
for you. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? We're deep. We're an hour and 15 deep into this. If you didn't like subscribe earlier, whenever I said to, you should do that right now before you click off the video. We'll love to have you back, and we'll see you guys next week unless anybody's got anything to add.
See you guys.
Jared Goff's a bum.
Peace.